So today we're going to dive into a concept that is the absolute bedrock of professions like engineering and geoscience. It's this hidden promise, an unwritten deal, that we call the social contract. And believe me, it's the invisible foundation that our entire modern world is built on.
Let's start with a question. We all know people who are experts at something, right? Incredibly skilled technicians, maybe amazing tradespeople. But what is it that elevates someone from just being an expert to being a professional? The answer? Well, it's not just about what you know. It's all about trust.
And that trust is kind of formalized in this big idea of a social contract. Think of it like this. Society basically says, okay, we're going to give you and only you the exclusive right to design our bridges, to manage our resources, and to build our cities. But in return, you have to promise, you have to swear to always, always put our safety and our welfare first. It's a really profound agreement that turns a job into a genuine public service.
Okay, but how is this deal actually structured? What are the foundations that make this whole system of trust actually work?
Well, this isn't just some friendly handshake. This trust is legally mandated. It's backed by the full force of the law. And here's why. Because the specialized knowledge that engineers and geoscientists have has a direct, real-world impact on our lives. That's why their practice is so heavily regulated. You've got provincial and territorial acts, formal codes of ethics, and they all point to one non-negotiable rule. The public interest is number one. That is the price of admission for getting that exclusive right to practice.
All right, so to hold up their end of this pretty serious bargain, a professional has to stand on two essential pillars. And if one of them is shaky, the entire structure of trust just collapses.
This slide here breaks the deal down perfectly. On one side, you have competence. That's the what. It's the technical skill to get the job done right. But on the other side, you have integrity. That's the how. It's the moral compass to do the right thing. And let me tell you why this matters so much. Competence is like a powerful engine that can build a skyscraper. But integrity? That's the blueprint and all the safety checks that make sure it doesn't fall down. One without the other isn't just useless, it's downright catastrophic.
Okay, so let's shift from the abstract terms of the deal to what it actually looks like to fulfill that promise in the real world.
One of the most powerful examples has got to be environmental stewardship. Professionals have what's called a cradle-to-grave responsibility. This means their duty doesn't just end when a project is built and they walk away. No way. They have to think about the entire life cycle, from anticipating the environmental impacts before a single shovel even hits the ground, all the way to planning for how a site will be decommissioned and restored maybe decades later. It's about protecting the planet for all the future generations.
And that duty extends far beyond just the environment. It's about people, and it's about communities. Fulfilling the promise means engaging respectfully with all sorts of diverse groups, especially indigenous communities. It means really listening to their concerns, acknowledging the cultural importance of the land, and making sure that the benefits of any project are shared fairly. This is the point where technical work becomes all about social justice.
But what happens when the deal is tested? When commercial pressures or unethical demands put a professional in a really tough spot. How is this social contract actually enforced?
A lot of the time it comes down to this: ethical courage. The commitment to this contract sometimes requires a professional to speak up, to refuse to sign off on an unsafe design, or even report a violation, something we often call whistleblowing. It's about having the guts to protect the public, even if it means risking your job or your reputation.
But courage isn't the only thing holding it all together. As you can see here, there are some powerful systems in place to enforce the contract. Strict licensing standards make sure only qualified people can even practice. Disciplinary systems investigate and punish misconduct. And that professional seal you see on a blueprint, that's not just some fancy stamp. It's a legally binding signature of personal responsibility. It says, I stand behind this work, and I am accountable for it.
This brings us to a really crucial point. The ability for these professions to govern themselves, a system we call self-regulation, is not a right. You have to think of it as a privilege, one that's granted by society. And that privilege only lasts as long as the profession proves over and over that it can and it will hold its own members accountable.
Which brings us to our final and maybe most important idea. Upholding this social contract isn't some one-time event. It's not a test you pass and then you're done. It's a lifelong commitment that has to be renewed every single day.
So how do they do that? Well, it really comes down to a constant process of self-evaluation, which can be pretty much boiled down to three fundamental questions.
Before making any significant decision, a true professional has to ask themselves, does this protect people and the planet? If my actions were suddenly on the front page of the news tomorrow, would it uphold or would it damage my profession's reputation? And finally, am I behaving in a way that truly earns the incredible trust that's been placed in me?
Because in the end, that's what it all comes down to. Public trust is the currency of a professional. It takes a lifetime of consistent, ethical choices to build it, but it can be destroyed in a single moment of weakness or neglect. So the question for everyone, professional or not, is what choice would you make to uphold the promises you've made?